Ladies and gentlemen, what the hell happened to the Giants' rushing attack? Well, we're going to try to find that out in this video. The Giants saw 7 men in the tackle box on 39% of their offensive snaps in Week 4. In the previous 3 games, the Giants saw 7 men in the box at only a 25% rate. The boxes were a little bit more loaded up. However, Dallas had 7 men in the box on 68% of the Giants' running plays. Mike Zimmer prioritized stopping the run and used a few wrinkles, and the Giants just failed to iron it out. There's a reason why Jones started the Dallas game 20 of 25 passing, and the Cleveland game 17 of 20 passing. The quick passing attack has acted as an extension of the running game, especially against aggressive defenses that are quick to rotate 2 high safeties downward or fit the nickel promptly. Mike Zimmer entered this game and adjusted his defense after surrendering 274 rushing yards versus Baltimore and 190 rushing yards against the Saints in Week 2. Those adjustments, along with a sensational performance by Mozzie Smith versus John Michael Schmitz, plus a more disciplined overall performance by the Dallas defense, led to the Giants only mustering 26 yards on the ground with a 1.1 yard per carry average.
That's not good enough.
So let's get into the tape and find out exactly how this all went down.
Dallas looked confused and frustrated against the Ravens zone read and option approach in Week 3 with the dynamic Lamar Jackson opposite of them. It led to finger pointing and some soul searching. Luckily, Dallas' soul had the hiding skills of a toddler as they quickly adjusted their approach against another mobile quarterback in Daniel Jones. All week we heard about hashtag establish the run and the porous nature of Dallas's defense. But that's not what we witnessed in Week 4. And credit to Dallas's execution and the tinkering of their scheme to fit the run soundly and force the Giants to become one-dimensional. And we just saw the Ravens on 3 successful zone read attempts, one leading to a Lamar Jackson touchdown on their first drive. It looked chaotic defensively. Micah Parsons was very frustrated. He was the read defender frequently in that game. And the Giants went right to a similar approach on their first drive, 10:56, 2nd and 7. And this is the play where Daniel Bellinger gets called for that bogus, that phantom, that ghost-like. We're not even in October yet. Halloween is not close, ladies and gentlemen. But it didn't matter because a ghost face mask was called. It wasn't even a ghost face mask because a face mask happened, but it was on Daniel Bellinger. But I digress. I want to talk about the scheme and exactly what Dallas did to account for Daniel Jones and the rushing ability from a zone read look. Here we're going to see an initial 3-by-1 set, 12 personnel. You have the nub on the end before Daniel Bellinger motions over with Chris Manhertz. That's going to be to the keeper side. So once Bellinger motions towards Chris Manhertz, giving a strength to the boundary side, a huge strength for the Giants, especially if Daniel Jones keeps this, which he has set up to keep this if the defense dictates so. Mike Zimmer had his safeties adjust. Now watch Malik Hooker, who is the top safety, as he turns his hips inward, he communicates with Donovan Wilson. And Donovan Wilson, he rocks downward as Malik Hooker rolls. So they're adjusting themselves. We're going to rotate the safety downward into the box towards the strength. And I'm now, that Daniel Bellinger is not there, me being Malik Hooker, I'm going to assume the deep responsibilities. We're going to add an extra body to the threat of the quarterback where there is a strength now with 2 tight ends on that side. So Hooker's going to roll deep. Donovan Wilson's going to rock downward. Donovan Wilson gets outside. He contains Daniel Jones, forces Daniel Jones towards those pursuing defenders, and then he ends up making this tackle. So this is a very little adjustment, but on those 3 previous plays, you did not see this. Now, it's different formations. I get it, but this is an adjustment that Dallas had to defend Daniel Jones in the Giants' zone rushing attack when the offensive formation warranted, and 12 personnel, 2 tight ends to the boundary side certainly warranted that. Let's add an extra body into the box and rotate our safeties. And Wilson does a very good job setting to the outside of Chris Manhertz and forcing Daniel Jones inside where Daniel Jones would have got tackled if he didn't make a tackle himself, which he did. And there's Daniel Bellinger getting his face mask pulled, and the penalty goes on Daniel Bellinger. Now we're going to see it from the end zone angle. You get the motion. You see the linebacker adjust. Look at your top right portion of your screen. Malik Hooker communicates with Donovan Wilson, tells him to rotate down. He rotates down. You see that extra body fly in from the left side. It's an extra guy that these tight ends now need to account for. If it stayed that way originally, they would have been Chris Manhertz and Daniel Bellinger on that one player with Donovan Wilson coming from extreme depth. But that rotation down added an extra body and gave the Giants problems and didn't allow for these huge 20, 16, 30-yard rushing attempts that Lamar Jackson had. And Daniel Jones isn't Lamar Jackson, but he's a perfectly mobile quarterback. Here's another zone read play. 3rd and 3. Giants going to use a jet motion, remove one defender from the box. going to go into the zone read. Daniel Jones keeps it, and Micah Parsons does a very good job on this play. Now, you watch those first 3 plays that I put up with Baltimore, Micah Parsons got sucked way too far inside a lot and didn't account for Lamar Jackson's speed and the keepability. And you'll see Parsons watch block down, step down. He steps down, and then he sees exactly what's going on, sees the mesh point, understands that Theo Johnson is crossing his face as that lead blocker, which the Giants put on film 3 straight games before this one. And then what does he do when engaging Theo Johnson? Pushes through the outside shoulder, force Daniel Jones back inside to the alley defender. This ends up being a first down. It's a 3rd and 3. It's a 5-yard gain. So it's still a win on the New York Giants. But it does show that the defense is playing with a lot more discipline, that the defense understands their run fits a little bit better from a structural standpoint. It's nothing too complex. Micah Parsons steps down, sees what's going on, press the outside shoulder. Do not allow Daniel Jones to go wide. Force Daniel Jones inside, and the alley defender will make the tackle in the alley. Still a first down, though. Now we're going to have a 2nd and 5, quarter 3, 4:27 left. Daniel Bellinger is going to motion again towards Chris Manhertz. So it's that same boundary, double Y side from 12 personnel. And what happens on this play, you're going to see that safety who's already rolled down in the box. He's going to expand with Daniel Bellinger. But the read defender, Marshawn Kneeland, does such an excellent job on this play. And this is something I remember when Mike Zimmer was the head coach for the Minnesota Vikings, that Danielle Hunter would do consistently during the early days of the zone read and the RPO and defenses being put in extreme conflict because a defender is eliminated. So what Marshawn Kneeland does on this play is he is going to stay tight to Jermaine Illuminor's ass. Jermaine Illuminor is not blocking him because Marshawn Kneeland is the read defender. And it's Daniel Jones' job to read the read defender and then make a decision. If the read defender pinches like he is doing, Daniel Jones needs to keep it. If the read defender stays put, stays square, and does not abandon his responsibility, being that contained guy, then he has to hand it off to the running back. And on this play with Eric Gray, Daniel Jones sees Marshawn Kneeland screaming tight to Jermaine Illuminor in pursuit. I got to keep this, but the Cowboys were coached up so well that Marshawn Kneeland redirects himself after taking about 2 steps tight to Jermaine Illuminor and goes right after the quarterback and tackles Daniel Jones for a loss of 5 to set up a 3rd and 10. Like Daniel Jones is going to get dinged for this. Like, oh, you got to read that defender better. Jones is typically good in these situations. He got dinged by Herb Street on this, and I understand where he's coming from, of course, but look, everything is saying to keep the football at this moment when Daniel Jones is making the decision, and then Kneeland just makes a fantastic play on this, comes off Eric Gray, and then tackles Daniel Jones, stifling the Giants' zone read approach while also deterring them from trying it again when you can't really get a clean read on the read defender because he's not reading. He's just running directly at the mesh point and judging last second on whether to take the quarterback or the running back. So we'll watch it one more time. See the blocking to the front side of the play. Giants actually had solid blocking too if Daniel Jones did hand this football off. Now, John Michael Schmitz loses to the inside there at that last second, but he stays glued to the block. Him and Mozzie Smith had a battle the entire night. Sadly, John Michael Schmitz didn't really win that battle. Mozzie Smith had a very good game after 3 poor games prior to this. It happens. Here, the Giants bring Daniel Bellinger into the backfield. They were using him from this alignment to cut block certain unblocked, quote-unquote, defenders. But here they pull the backside guard, John Runyon, go into the zone read. Micah Parsons steps down. Daniel Jones hands the football off. And you're going to see Donovan Wilson screaming into the box. Again, he's tight to the box. It's a loaded box at this point. Mike Zimmer put a strategic emphasis on this. Daniel Jones hands the football off. And you're going to see just an absolute clog in the middle of the defense. Mozzie Smith is going to try to go through the weak side A-gap, and then he just goes right through the strong side A-gap, gets John Michael Schmitz to set a little bit too far outside, runs into Greg Van Roten, almost setting a pick, but Jermaine Illuminor is on that double team, on that block down scenario, because the Giants are blocking down here. They're trying to wash the 3 technique away from the play side, and then John Runyon's going to kick out the most dangerous man and lead block if need be. It's just Donovan Wilson is so quick to fill here. And Wan'Dale Robinson can't get to his set point to throw the block. Unfortunately, Runyon gets met at the line of scrimmage, and there's an unblocked defender in DeMarin Overshown right there waiting for Tyrone Tracy Jr. Like they did a couple unique things up front too. It wasn't just safety rotation. And you can kind of see it here. I have a couple plays highlighted throughout this that you'll see exactly what I'm talking about, where the interior defensive linemen, they're going to just clog up the middle here. And Mozzie Smith does a very good job penetrating, and you see the 3 technique kind of get washed, but then Mozzie Smith puts his shoulder into Greg Van Roten, attempting to free up the player who was being blocked into him, although Jermaine Illuminor is still on that block and he doesn't climb up to Overshown, which allows Overshown to make the play eventually. I felt like Dallas was setting picks up front and changing their original path, or the conventional path that they would typically take. Like if John Michael Schmitz set a certain way, Mazi Smith would go through the backside A gap and try to undercut a play. And I think it caught the Giants off guard a little bit. But on this specific play, this is just a physical safety meeting the pulling guard, the backside guard, John Runyon, on this power gap, on this power run off of the zone read. I should say. There we go. Giants get stifled at the line of scrimmage. Again, a lot of extra bodies. Because in this game, man, other than John Michael Schmitz, it's not like the Giants were just getting bullied at the point of attack or out-physicaled, in my opinion. But the movement of Dallas was too much for the Giants to account for. And it did seem like the Giants were guessing a lot on where Dallas was going to be, and they put themselves out of position relative to where Dallas was going to be. Here we're going to get another zone read. This time it's Theo Johnson going to that boundary side where Chris Manhertz is. Andrew Thomas, John Runyon just absolutely uproot the 3 technique to the strong side. Hand off to Eric Gray, and Eric Hendricks is just right there. It's a very good play by the middle linebacker to stick his nose right where Eric Gray is. And Andrew Thomas is a little bit late coming off of his block, or John Runyon is. 2 players with Overshown and Kendricks right in that area. And Manhertz does not have the angle to get to Overshown once he releases, because Micah Parsons is that read defender, and he does a really good job gaining a little bit of depth behind the line of scrimmage, looking directly at Daniel Jones, forcing a handoff, and Overshown is already in position to close down on that handoff. And Eric Kendricks is as well. The Giants ran a ton of counter in 2022 and 2023. This is a counter run we're about to see. Backside guard pulls along with the H-back being Daniel Bellinger. And Dallas just does a really good job executing what would be called a fallback fit from the linebackers. So the linebackers are going to push where Theo Johnson's 12 personnel under center run. Theo Johnson's going to go towards Daniel Bellinger. Linebackers shift with Theo Johnson, but you can see once the pullers commit to pulling, watch how the linebackers will fall back into their gap responsibility. You can see how they just take that step and they're going to go towards the right. You're going to see Donovan Wilson, consider him a linebacker, as a safety operating in the box. He's going to go toward the outside hip of 94. Knows 94 is going to stack and present his inside numbers towards the running back. And that's going to require Daniel Bellinger to also hit 94. And then 18 is going to scrape in between the desired hole where Daniel Bellinger is. So now you basically have 6 and 18 who are unblocked, and 94 does such a good job against Greg Van Roten that he just presents his numbers. So you have 3 sets of numbers just looking directly at Tyrone Tracy Jr., who gets gobbled up. This is good execution by Dallas on their fallback fits. And not just that from their linebackers. It's also what happens with 99. So watch 99 and then watch Mazi Smith. Mazi Smith is that one technique basically directly over top of John Michael Schmitz. He is going to set to the outside, and you have the Giants blocking down. You have 2 guys on 99, but this is kind of what I was alluding to, and I even openly said before, 93 is going to set a pick on John Michael Schmitz, and that's going to allow 99 to go behind Mazi Smith and undercut Greg Van Roten, and nobody picks him up. So it's almost like a stunt at the line of scrimmage, almost like a gap exchange. And this happened a lot with Dallas. They did this quite a bit. We'll see it a little bit more too. This is the second play where I'm going over, but watch how Mazi Smith, he sees its power gap. You have the backside guard pulling. You have the H-back pulling. Center takes an aggressive step towards 99. 93 takes the block on from Greg Van Roten, and then he just pins John Michael Schmitz and holds him. You can even see his hand on John Michael Schmitz's bicep, and that allows 99, who's not in the firm grasp of John Michael Schmitz, given the angle that JMS had to cover there, just works his way to the play side and makes a tackle along with 94. So very well executed run defense, team defense. Giants look like they don't know what their assignments are on this play based on what Dallas did. I think this really did catch off guard, and play went for nothing. Tyrone Tracy just gets absolutely bottled up. Giants tried these I formation runs out of 21 personnel. Look, I respect it. Ground and pound. Love 90s football, baby. But Micah Parsons, man, like people, I see people online be like, yeah, Micah Parsons didn't do anything in this game. It's like, you guys, I don't know what you're watching, man. Micah Parsons is a stud. Yeah, he didn't affect the game maybe as a pass rusher as much, other than the fact that the Giants have to construct a game plan to avoid this dude. But watch him on the edge with Chris Manhertz and Andrew Thomas. This is a 2nd and 6 run, a big play. So I formation stretch run. You have four hands, two very good blockers on Micah Parsons. Watch how Micah Parsons expands outward and expands outward and expands outward and just creates a wall that Devin Singletary cannot penetrate. And Dallas's defense, those second level defenders, they come down very quickly and they just elongate this path. They force Devin Singletary to go east-west, and he has nowhere to really move north-south. You can say maybe he could punch it right up through, pause. You could punch it right behind Andrew Thomas's backside. But Eric Kendricks is right there. And I do think Devin Singletary in general in this game, and this is not consistent with anything I've really seen from him throughout his career, he bounced it a little bit more than I think he should. There's a play I believe I have in here that will go over where it showcases that, but that's still just excellent defense by Micah Parsons. And that's not the only play Micah Parsons had that really affected the game. You can see this one as well. Just sidesteps Andrew Thomas. That's a beautiful play by Micah Parsons where one quick outside his frame step to get Andrew Thomas leaning into contact, and then the agility and the lateral quickness to just make Andrew Thomas, one of the best tackles in the game, fall on his ass like that. Excellent play. And you can see how the linebacker, Luafau, is flowing over the top to replace. This is a design play by Mike Zimmer, right? If you want to run to the weak side, which the Giants opted to do on this play, you see a double Y set. They run to the weak side. Micah Parsons goes inside of the B gap. Luafau is going to loop around and become that immediate contained defender while you also have an apex with Darius Slayton over there. Play gets blown up. Hardly touches Micah Parsons. Here's another I formation run, 1st and 10 early in the game. Look, this is just a simple overfront with three linebackers. So you have a 7-man box, but this is an overfront, meaning the 3 technique is to the strength. The strength is where Chris Manhertz is, and that is also the field side. And that's where the run is designed to go. But the 3 technique, he doesn't float out. He doesn't flow outside. What he does is he goes through the inside shoulder of Greg Van Roten. As you can see, he takes a step to the inside, gets hip to hip with John Michael Schmitz. And what that does is that prevents John Michael Schmitz from climbing up and locating Eric Kendricks cleanly. And those linebackers now have more range to operate when these defensive linemen hold up. And this isn't a hold like a penalty hold. This is just the path that the 3 technique took. It created a clog, it created a traffic jam where you have 3 Giants offensive linemen blocking only 2 Dallas defensive linemen. And you can see it stays like that until Jakob Johnson comes in, and Jakob Johnson needs to help out Greg Van Roten on Mozzie Smith too. And this ends up being one of the better gains by the New York Giants, which is sad. But little things like this, the 3 technique in the overfront going through this A gap, I also think just kind of threw the New York Giants off a bit. They weren't expecting that. And that prevented them from climbing up to the second level, locating the second level blocks that allow them to actually effectively run the football. I think I had the same time as the previous play. Ignore that. But here we see John Michael Schmitz struggle against Mozzie Smith. This is you have a strong I formation, Jakob Johnson motions, and you're going to try to run it to the weak side with Jakob Johnson coming across the formation to take on Eric Kendricks. And he does that, but Mozzie Smith resets this line of scrimmage. He establishes this line of scrimmage. He gets underneath John Michael Schmitz. Low hat wins, low hips win. John Michael Schmitz is in no position to make or execute a block here. And he's able to settle down. But by the time Devin Singletary plants his foot in the ground, JMS is right in his lap. It's an excellent play by Mozzie Smith. And when I said earlier, like, I don't think the Giants were completely out physical, that applies to everybody except for 61. Like, Mozzie Smith had a great game here. And look, Mozzie Smith's performance against the Giants, like I said earlier, man, it alleviates this massive burden that was placed on all of those second level defenders against the Saints and against the Ravens. Like, Smith's ability to occupy double teams, split double teams, and help free up other players on the defensive line prevented the Giants' offensive line from climbing and locating Overshown, Kendricks, or even Luafau or Donovan Wilson. So you have a nice double team with Jermaine Illuminor, Greg Van Roten. You have a nice double team. JMS, though, gets pushed back. Jakob Johnson throws his block. Devin Singletary needs to recollect himself. And by that point, 28 is coming in to fill from the outside because it's a loaded box. And the Giants did not really have a lot of advantages mathematically in this game when they were running the football. And look, the 3 technique is towards Chris Manhertz's side. The ball's in the center of the field. You have Theo Johnson. It's an I formation. Play opens up to the right towards Theo Johnson away from the 3 technique. And Mozzie Smith is able to go from the 1 technique towards the play side, kind of like a 2-eye shade, and he penetrates the backside A gap. Gets underneath John Michael Schmitz and is able to break into the backfield and make the tackle on Devin Singletary. I don't think either Greg Van Roten or John Michael Schmitz expected that. And the quickness of Mozzie Smith's hand to throw John Michael Schmitz towards Greg Van Roten and then present himself, well, through a hold, really, to Devin Singletary is very, very impressive. Plays like this, too, man. It does not seem like the Giants were expecting these types of movements at the line of scrimmage, nor did they expect it to be that effective, I would imagine. But these are some of the reasons why the Giants had so many damn negative runs, or runs that were just stopped at the line of scrimmage. And then when you have plays like this, a double team, another I formation run, 21 personnel, and you allow the one technique on the over front, so you have the three technique towards Chris Manhertz, to split the double team of John Runyon and John Michael Schmitz. And this looks like it's probably a little bit more on John Michael Schmitz too. And I'm not trying to just bash on JMS. I just thought this was a bad game by him. And a lot of these plays that are blown up, it's because he's just losing his one-on-one matchup with Mozzie Smith, along with, I think, scheme, as we gone over in this video too. But he makes contact, but he doesn't make enough contact to allow John Runyon to assume this block. And I also just think this is a great individual effort by Smith, who is able to get his shoulders horizontal, present the back of his deltoid to John Runyon while keeping his head and his chest square towards the play side, not really allowing John Runyon to access anything. So when JMS does come off, he's able to do exactly what he did. Plus the pursuing defender, Luafau, he's the backside unblocked player. He needs to get picked up at some point because he's about to undercut the play. And Jakob Johnson didn't think he had to worry about the one technique who was getting double teamed initially. So he ends up just running past one of the blockers and splitting the other two. Not great on the Giants' part. Excellent individual effort, though. Again, this is not a Cowboys podcast, but you got to call it like it is. Here, so again, one of the better runs from the Giants. I formation, they hit strong side. And what is the three technique to the strength doing? He's stepping into the A-gap. Step into the A-gap, penetrate the A-gap, contact John Michael Schmitz, try to prevent him from climbing. JMS does a better job holding on to the one technique with John Runyon. See how he stays with him longer, allows John Runyon to get in a better position. But the linebackers are so quick and aggressive to fill that they pinch up. Devin Singletary is able to turn this into a solid run on first down. But the Cowboys really wanted to penetrate that A-gap and then just occupy these three interior offensive linemen. That's what their goal was on a lot of these stretch runs, especially out of I formation. And they believed that their players were able to avoid Jakob Johnson, fill and fit the run, creating a wall and allowing little room for Devin Singletary to operate in. And it was successful. Here we're going to see a play where Mozzie Smith, he is the one technique, kind of almost a nose, and he is going to just step towards the weak side, but he's able to get underneath John Michael Schmitz and then pull him downward. And in doing that, he penetrates that A-gap again with Eric Kendricks penetrating. So now you have just the A-gaps all clogged up. 3 Dallas defenders, 3 New York Giants. But the problem with this play, even though it seems blocked up, and I think JMS does a good job recovering because he gets his feet tripped up, and he pins Mozzie Smith, or that might actually be Linville Joseph. I think it's Linville Joseph. He pins Linville Joseph to Greg Van Roten. Good play. Problem, he trips John Runyon. So you can see how Linville Joseph is able to ragdoll John Michael Schmitz, and then that foot that John Michael Schmitz just put in the ground kicks out John Runyon's feet. So Luafau is unblocked, ends up making the tackle on Devin Singletary. So that's what happened. Good recovery by JMS. Excellent, sweet, nice. But you took out the guard. And now the guard can't block the second level defender. Devin Singletary, look, man, he didn't really have a lot of room to the front side of that play. 12 personnel with Darius Slayton as a wide receiver insert almost. It's a lot of giant bodies over there. And Devin Singletary has to cut this back. And it's probably a smart move on this play. It looks like, because nobody's up to Overshone. Overshone is just watching him the entire time. So get close to the line of scrimmage, have yourself get lost. There's a huge cutback lane. I'm sure he probably didn't anticipate John Runyon falling down because he got tripped by John Michael Schmitz. It's a frustrating game because of the lack of execution and the fact that you just saw Mike Zimmer do a couple different things with his secondary, how they were firing off the line of scrimmage, where they were firing off the line of scrimmage. And the Giants didn't really account for it, despite Dallas being historically bad before this. Now, I was talking about those picks a little earlier, right? Watch Carl Lawson. He's going up against Andrew Thomas. You're going to have a weak side run to the field side. So it's open side of the formation. Carl Lawson, he's blocked. He needs to set this edge. Andrew Thomas is winning. So what does Carl Lawson do? Carl Lawson lags back, and then sets a pick so Eric Kendricks can get free to make this tackle. It's team defense right there. It's smart, too. It's happened at least 4 or 5 times through the game with the edges and the defensive linemen just to free up other defensive players who were being blocked. You can see it right here. Andrew Thomas does a great job reaching, gets his hands underneath Carl Lawson, dominating Carl Lawson. Carl Lawson gets his eyes to the inside, it looks like, but we know he has contained responsibility because there's no one else there. So what does he do? He's like, I'm just going to throw my shoulder into John Runyon, and that's going to free up the linebacker, and the linebacker can make the play. Both linebackers make the play because Overshone is an absolute freak who does crazy stuff. But yeah, that's a quick little breakdown for everybody. I hope you guys enjoyed this, showcasing exactly what went wrong with the New York Giants on the ground and why they couldn't establish a run at all. Safeties rotating down into the box to account for the zone read and to just add extra bodies from 2 high shells or from cover 1 robber, rotate that robber down very, very quickly. Aspects like that added extra bodies that made the math disadvantageous for the New York Giants, gave them a mathematical advantage to the Dallas Cowboys. And then there was just the execution on the line of scrimmage. There was unique paths that I think the Giants did not account for. Mozzie Smith also playing out of his mind did not help. So there were a lot of factors as to why the Giants didn't run the football effectively in this game. Coaching adjustments. I will say I expect them to be better. I think the Giants need a lot more from John Michael Schmitz in general. There's only been one game where the Giants have run the football effectively, and that was against the Washington Commanders. A lot of those runs were duo runs. Giants didn't run a lot of duo in this game. They ran, I think, 2 plays, maybe 3-play duo. I don't have it in front of me, but it wasn't a huge duo type of approach. But I'm hoping the Giants can get back to that, and I'm hoping that if they can't, they continue being efficient throwing the football and maybe forcing more 6-man boxes and lighter boxes if the Giants are going to run a little bit more 11 personnel. It's hard to tell right now, trying to find something positive, but it's tough when the Dallas Cowboys have beaten the Giants as much as they've beaten the Giants, and the Giants put themselves into position so many times in this game to win this game, and yet they still found a way to shoot themselves in the foot and lose. I just hope it changes soon, ladies and gentlemen, right? Like, it's got to change soon. But, it's only week 4. We're going to turn the page to week 5 in Seattle. Thank you guys for tuning into this. Please like, subscribe, comment on this show, and I will see you guys soon. Take care of each other and have a lovely one.